Ben Shapiro is a prominent conservative commentator and political pundit whose rapid rise to fame is marked by his provocative and often polarizing statements. While he may be celebrated by his supporters for his sharp wit and unapologetic conservatism, his critics have consistently questioned the validity of his arguments and the impact of his rhetoric on public discourse. In this analysis, we will delve into some of Ben Shapiro's most controversial claims, examining their basis, the context in which they were made, and offering a liberal perspective on their accuracy.
Before we dive in, if you find this content valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. It truly helps us grow. Now, let's get started.
Climate change denial. One of Ben Shapiro's most controversial claims is his stance on climate change. He has been a vocal climate change skeptic, often downplaying the scientific consensus on the matter. He argues that climate change is either a natural occurrence or not as dire as some scientists claim. From a liberal standpoint, Shapiro's skepticism is problematic. The overwhelming majority of climate scientists agree that climate change is primarily driven by human activities, such as the burning of fossil fuels. Dismissing this consensus can lead to inaction on an issue that poses a severe threat to our planet. By cherry-picking data and disregarding scientific consensus, Shapiro may be doing a disservice to the public discourse on climate change. Immigration. From a liberal standpoint, Ben Shapiro's stance on immigration raises concerns not only about the humanitarian aspects but also the economic realities. His support for stricter immigration policies, including separating families at the border, is seen as inhumane and at odds with the values of compassion and empathy. Critics argue that no child should be torn from their parents, and the psychological and emotional trauma caused by such policies is a moral crisis. Moreover, the claim that immigrants have a detrimental economic impact is questioned by many liberals. Immigrants have historically been a driving force behind the American economy, contributing to innovation, labor force growth, and the revitalization of declining communities. It is argued that comprehensive immigration reform, which provides a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, not only respects human rights but also strengthens the nation's economy and social fabric. While Ben Shapiro's emphasis on border security and merit-based immigration has its merits, the liberal viewpoint emphasizes the importance of a more compassionate, inclusive, and economically beneficial immigration policy. The ongoing debate between these two perspectives is a fundamental part of the larger immigration discourse in the United States. Abortion rights. Ben Shapiro's outspoken pro-life advocacy places him firmly in the midst of the deeply divisive and enduring debate over abortion rights in the United States. He asserts that life begins at conception, a belief that leads him to support strict anti-abortion policies. This stark contrast between Shapiro's conservative stance and the liberal perspective on this issue is emblematic of the broader ideological divide in American society. From a liberal perspective, the right to choose is considered a fundamental aspect of women's reproductive rights and personal autonomy. At the core of this viewpoint is the belief that reproductive decisions are intensely personal and should be made by the individuals most directly affected by them, the pregnant woman, in consultation with her healthcare provider and support network. The landmark Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade is pivotal for liberals as it affirmed a woman's right to choose whether to terminate a pregnancy. To many on the liberal side of the debate, Shapiro's pro-life position is perceived as an encroachment on these hard-fought rights. It is seen as an effort to impose a particular set of moral and religious beliefs on women, undermining their capacity to make decisions about their own bodies. Furthermore, liberal proponents argue that restricting access to safe and legal abortion services does not eliminate the practice but merely drives it underground, putting women's lives at risk. They advocate for comprehensive sex education and accessible healthcare as a means to reduce the number of unwanted pregnancies, thereby reducing the need for abortions. The clash between conservative pro-life viewpoints and liberal pro-choice values remains one of the most contentious and enduring issues in American politics. It has far-reaching implications for women's reproductive health care, individual rights, and the broader question of the separation between religious beliefs and state policy. While this ideological battle shows no signs of resolution in the near future, it underscores the importance of open and respectful dialogue to navigate this deeply polarized issue. Gun control. Ben Shapiro's unwavering defense of the Second Amendment and his opposition to stricter gun control measures represent a significant ideological divergence between conservative and liberal viewpoints. He argues that the right to bear arms is deeply ingrained in American culture, invoking a historical and constitutional basis for his stance. Shapiro contends that widespread gun ownership can serve as a deterrent to crime, allowing citizens to protect themselves and their property. However, from a liberal standpoint, Shapiro's position is viewed through the lens of the ongoing gun violence crisis in the United States. The nation faces one of the highest rates of gun violence among developed countries, with mass shootings and everyday gun violence incidents plaguing communities. Many liberals contend that implementing more stringent gun control measures, such as universal background checks and restrictions on high-capacity magazines and assault weapons, is a necessary step to mitigate this crisis. This viewpoint is driven by a commitment to public safety and the belief that reducing access to firearms can help prevent individuals with malicious intent from carrying out acts of violence. Advocates of gun control argue that the Second Amendment, while important, should not be an impediment to common-sense measures that could save lives. They also stress the need for more comprehensive mental health support and a focus on the root causes of violence to address the multifaceted issue of gun violence. While the debate between the right to bear arms and the imperative for stricter gun control continues to be contentious, it underscores the broader challenge of balancing individual liberties with public safety in the United States. This issue is unlikely to be resolved in the near future, and the ideological chasm between these two perspectives remains a defining element of American political discourse. Economic policies. Shapiro often champions conservative economic policies, arguing for lower taxes and limited government intervention in the economy. He believes that these policies promote economic growth and individual freedom. From a liberal perspective, this approach tends to favor the wealthy at the expense of the less privileged. Critics argue that tax cuts for the wealthy do not necessarily trickle down to benefit the majority of the population, exacerbating income inequality. Furthermore, they believe that government intervention is necessary to address issues like healthcare and income inequality. Identity politics. Ben Shapiro's vocal criticism of identity politics reflects a significant ideological divide between conservative and liberal perspectives. He contends that this form of politics exacerbates divisions by categorizing people along racial and ethnic lines, potentially leading to unnecessary social rifts. From a liberal standpoint, the concept of identity politics is seen quite differently. Liberals argue that recognizing and addressing issues related to race, gender, and other aspects of identity is a fundamental step toward addressing systemic racism, inequality, and social injustice. It's viewed as a way to empower marginalized communities, allowing them to have a voice in discussions that directly affect their lives. Liberals argue that identity politics can be a tool for positive change, a means to advocate for civil rights, and a path toward more inclusive policies. By acknowledging the unique challenges faced by various identity groups, they believe it's possible to develop solutions that promote equity and justice for all. The crux of this ideological clash lies in the interpretation of what identity politics represents. Conservatives like Shapiro see it as divisive and detrimental, while liberals view it as a necessary instrument for challenging historical and ongoing discrimination. The debate surrounding identity politics remains a pivotal element of the broader discourse on equality and justice in the United States. It reflects the enduring struggle to balance individual rights, social justice, and the recognition of the diverse and complex aspects of identity within society. In analyzing Ben Shapiro's most controversial claims from a liberal perspective, it's clear that there are significant disagreements between conservative and liberal viewpoints. Shapiro's statements often run contrary to the values and beliefs held by many liberals, and they challenge the foundations of progressive policy and social change. However, it's essential to remember that public discourse benefits from diversity of opinion. While Shapiro's views are divisive, they encourage dialogue and debate, which are crucial for a healthy democracy. Ultimately, the disagreements outlined here are emblematic of the broader political and ideological divisions within the United States, and they are unlikely to be resolved anytime soon.